might be live. If I'm live, if you can hear this, if you're out there, then please do let me know and welcome. I'll do the welcome in a minute because I just want to make sure that it's working first. Because my history with this is not good. The first 10 minutes are usually wasted in faffing about. But there's every possibility that this time it will work. This time it's for real. Let me just check. I know this sounds silly, but I've got to find myself. It says offline. Why is it offline? Stream offline. Stream 6 minutes ago. I should be back online. Am I not online? Oh, good. I'm online. Good. Okay, good. Now, just forgive me for just faffing about for a minute because I just need to be able to get the chat up in the right place, and I don't have that yet. This is now saying I'm offline. I don't want to be offline. Stream now, events. Live now. That's the one that I want. Okay, good. We're there. Right. Great. Super. Thank you. I will begin as I mean to begin, which is to just say welcome. Welcome to Molten Music Technology, the live stream on usually the last Sunday of the month or the Sunday after the Molten Music Monthly that I do. You're very welcome here. We have a dozen, 2 dozen maybe people watching, which is great. Thank you and welcome. What's the point of all this? The point of all this is just to chat, perhaps, about the things that came up in the Molten Monthly, to chat about any new technology, bits and pieces, to chat about Eurorack and modular, because that's something which still remains large as a presence in my life. But we can talk about other things too, or I can just make music. In fact, if you accidentally got here an hour ago, because I usually do these things at 8 o'clock, but I couldn't this evening, then you would have been treated to a bonus bit of music making, because I just sort of made this up, what you're hearing now. Which was nice, but the reason we're later this time is because Divkid, Ben, has got his own live stream going on, and we sort of advertised them at just about the same time this week, so it's just an unfortunate clash, and I'd rather than go up against him, not that we're necessarily the same audience or same people, that I would rather not just schedule at the same time, so I decided to bump it back an hour just to give people an opportunity to watch his video and his live stream before coming to me, or maybe I'll capture people later on. Who knows? I don't know. Is there enough internet for both of us? I'd like to think so. So we're probably sharing the 50 viewers total who like to spend their Sundays watching this sort of thing between us for a little bit. But that's okay. So if you're coming from over there, then welcome. If you're coming to me just for me because I'm what it's all about, then special welcomes to you. Now let's stop blundering on, and let me just check first of all, can you hear the microphone okay? Can you hear the music okay? If we can do both those things at once, and I think we've cracked it. And obviously because of the delay involved in live streaming, I'm just gonna have to wait and see what the chat says. Someone said yes, that's good enough for me, I imagine. Great, well in that case I'll settle down and I'll start telling you a story. So have a think whether there was anything in the last broadcast, the last Molten Monthly, that really took your fancy. Is there anything there that you'd like to chat about, ask me questions about? If you have questions about synthesis, music technology in general, anything about this, that's cool, bring it on. I'm happy to answer questions if I spot them. And we can do that. Trying to think whether there's anything in particular I wanted to kick it off with. I think I will mention the edge cutter again, which is here. So I've just done a couple of videos on that. Now, I don't know if you remember, but last live stream, which was a full month ago, I installed the This Is Not Rocket Science edge cutter. Excuse me. For the first time, I unboxed it, installed it, plugged it in, and then talked about how I'm going to be doing a video entitled Discovering Envelopes and what that was all about. And I still intend to do that. In fact, I've been trying to do that video now for the past month, but it's been so darn hot that it just seems to be impossible. I mean, last week I was completely focused on the edge cutter, pushing everything else aside. I needed to get this video done, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because it requires a kind of thought and explanation and sort of teaching, I suppose, that I'm trying to get across, and that requires a lot of thought from me and sitting under the lights for long periods of time and trying to get that across articulately and well. And I just kept melting. I just turned into a sort of a grease spot on the floor every time I attempted to film it. It was just too harsh, too muggy, and of course I can't have a fan on or anything like that because then you wouldn't be able to hear what I was saying. It all gets stuck through the microphone. So it's been slightly frustrating. However, it gave me the opportunity to focus on the edge cutter without actually trying to explain it. So I just kind of played with it. And I produced a couple of videos at the end of last week where I got to the point where I knew I couldn't do a piece to camera because I was too hot and sweaty, but I could just play with it and record it. And so that's what I did. And I was thinking to myself, well, how can I use an envelope? What can I use an envelope for? And I started plugging it into different things. And one of the videos shows, I think, 23 different things I plugged the envelope into. It doesn't have to be that number. And there are so many more than 23. That's just all I happened to come up with at the time. And there's dozens more uses that you could comment about. But that's what I did. Another one I did was just a jam where I started taking, because this edge cutter thing, it's got tons of things on it, like trigger outputs on each of the stages. It's got CV control over each of the stages. It's got two outputs, a curved one and a flat one. All sorts of bits and pieces. So I just rooted stuff out into as many things as I could find, and that created this kind of dark and evil sounding weirdness for 10 minutes. So I stuck that up as a video as well, which was nice. So that's been my edge cutter experience, but hopefully this coming week, if it's not too hot, I will really attempt to nail that Discovering Envelopes video for you so that I can share what I've learnt about envelopes before I forget it. Because there was one thing that I felt that is a common problem. I mean, this is something that I'm working with all the time, I think, is that experts in this area, experts of modular, experts of synthesis, experts... So I'm just going to kick my shoes off. That's the kind of person I am. I mean, any expert, I think, forgets really quickly how they discovered something. And so I don't want to let this run on for too long. Otherwise, I will start forgetting what it felt like to discover how envelopes work. Does that make sense? I think part of my role on the internet and in the world is to try to give that discovery perspective, that fresh, I've just learnt this is what it's about thing, as opposed to, oh, I'm so wise and old, I've been doing this for many, many years, and this, blah, 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 is what an envelope is about. Because I've looked at a lot of those videos and, whew, wow, I mean, they're 3 minutes long and don't really tell you anything. I mean, other than what you know, because we all know that an envelope controls volume. We know that bit. It's why it gets complicated. Why is it that an envelope on a synth, like this fella, why is it that an envelope on here is easy and obvious, yet when you move to Eurorack, it's difficult? Now I know you're all sitting there in smug synthesizer land going, oh, it's not difficult, I know all about it. I could tell you all about your Z4000 if only you'd listen to me. Yeah, I know. I imagine that. However, if you are new to this sort of thing, then actually there's a massive disconnect between a synthesizer ADSR, a synthesizer envelope, and a modular one. They're just different worlds. They can absolutely do the same thing and also not. But it's not that what they do, it's how that functions. And I found that really interesting. And I have to not remember, no, I have to not forget that. I need to get those feelings, that thought, that discovery, that journey down into a video before I forget. You know, that's key to, I think, what I do well, I think, is get that kind of thing across. So this week, hopefully, if it's not baking my head like crazy, I'll be finishing off my envelope discovery video, because I think it will be fascinating. It'll be really interesting. And we'll all learn a load of stuff. And that's got to be a good thing. I've certainly learned a load of stuff. In fact, if you like, I can tell you why the Z4000 was doing me in. I know now. I know what the problem is. Problem with the Z, or do I? Well, I haven't. I mean, I might be wrong, but what I understand, because what I started doing is I started putting the output through my scope. Here, I've got this O'Toole scope, which you can't see because of my coffee cup. And I put them next to each other on the scope. And the Z4000 automatically, straight away and immediately gave me problems. What sort of problems? Well, it was all over the place. And what I suddenly realized was that the Z4000 was doing massive amount of voltage, you know, all the way up to 12, plus or minus 12 volts. Plus or minus 12 volts, or 0 to 12 volts. Something like that. Whereas the edge cutter was all about 0 to 5 volts. Now, I know there's 12 volts in Eurorack, I know there's 5 volts. I don't know why there's both. I'm sure someone could tell me. I don't actually have that information in my head at this time. But there is 5 volts and there's 12 volts. When I put the edge cutter into stuff, it works. It just works. When I put the Z4000 into stuff, it goes all over the place, and I'm not quite sure what's going on or how to handle it, and it just doesn't seem like an envelope shape. It seems like something else is going on. And I think it's because the Z4000 has this much greater range. Presumably, there are modules that deal in 12 volts and modules that deal in 5 volts. And because of that, that's where the problems lie. That's why there's this attenuverter knob on the Z4000, because I can turn down the range, I discovered, using that knob. Whereas before, that knob has just pissed me off, because I don't know what it was doing. Nothing seemed to work if you had it in the middle, which of course it won't. But I didn't really realize that. And yet it's going all over the place. You have it too far one way or the other. Oh, it just drove me nuts. As I say, I think I know now why it drives me nuts. It's because it's dealing with different voltages. And these are things, these are blocks that land in your way in Eurorack, which just send you flying. If you don't know, it's mystical. It's mysterious. Why is this working different to this one? It doesn't make any sense. There's no sense to that. There are plenty of reasons, but why would you know them? Do you see what I mean? Unless you've studied it academically or paid more attention, I suppose, than I have. So yeah, that was a load of talk about envelopes then. So yeah, coming soon. I'll explain it all. I will open it up and we'll stick that little fella into all sorts of things. Although this is not rocket science, do want it back. That's the only downside. They kind of gave me you need to have this done by the end of last week or there'll be trouble, they said. And I went, oh. And so that's why I was focused so last week on trying to get that done, and I haven't done. So I think what's going to have to happen is that I'm just going to have to give money, because I really love it. I love it. I think it's a fantastic thing. And so I'm just going to have to pay for it, because I don't want it to go. I don't want it to go back. So I will do that. And I think if I do, I think it's a good idea to do so, because they're very thin on the ground also. but it ruins my rack because my rack was full a couple of months ago. It was nicely full, or everything, every HP was used, and that was brilliant. But now, well, first of all, the Euro rack, what's it? Here it is. The Euro DL turned up, and that made me push a few things around, and I had to take out the random rhythm in order to fit that in. But I've done the review of that now, so that can go back, I guess, assuming they want it back. I don't know. So I've had to shuffle things around a little bit, but if I want this, then that's going to bump something else out, and that's getting a bit tricky. So that wasn't my intention. I was supposed to stop at 3 rows. I was supposed to stop at 1 row, but here I am stopping again at 3 rows. But then I'm doing the extra row for the DIY side of things. Yeah. I don't know. There's not going to be an end to it, I don't think. Or is there? I don't know. I mean, as long as people keep supporting me on Patreon, then I'll keep making videos, and that will result in me having to purchase more modules. It's, yeah, it's a vicious circle. It's a vicious circle. It's your fault, ultimately. Yeah. So let me have a quick look at the comments over here, and what I need is a personal assistant who sits there recording the comments and can just pass them over in a sheet so we can talk about them. But no, I have to look myself because it's just me, as it were. So just give me a second. I'm going to look over here. It looks weird on video. I don't like watching myself back when I look at the live stream because I'm like peering over here going, it's weird, but it's what I have to do. Hang on a second. I'm going to have some more coffee. It's not a bloody mess. It's a perfect, crafted, spontaneous mess that I made about 45 minutes ago. I'll have you know, Skyhawk. So let me just work this out. Scroll back up again. Yeah, it has been hot. Been flipping hot. Hasn't it been hot? Hot. Okay, that's working. La di la. Are you running your music through a mixer for output? No, I'm not. Do you know if interfaces Thunderbolt 3 have less latency than Thunderbolt 2? I do know, and the answer is no. They do not. At least in my experience, because you're talking about stupid little milliseconds worth of stuff. And although, okay, no, actually, reverse, come back. I have not encountered any audio interfaces that have Thunderbolt 3 on them. They have all been Thunderbolt 1 and Thunderbolt 2 in the ones that I've come across. There are none, I'm trying to think now, that have Thunderbolt 3. Do you know of any? Please pipe up and let me know if there's any Thunderbolt 3. Have UAD done one? Ooh, I don't know. But you know, my experience of things like the Claret and such like have all been Thunderbolt 2, and previous UAD ones have been Thunderbolt 1 and then Thunderbolt 2. So would Thunderbolt 3 have less latency than Thunderbolt 2? Then potentially, I suppose, yes, but it's not really about latency. It's about, or it's not about speed of transfer, it's about bandwidth. The same with USB. USB 1, USB 2, USB 3. It's more to do with bandwidth, how much width you can get going in at once. So multi-track data, not speed that actually moves necessarily through. I mean, obviously it means things transfer faster because there's more room to do more data at one time. However, from our point of view, when we're trying to get a stable audio stream, it doesn't really matter whether it's if you're just using a single stereo signal, whether that's 1, 2, or 3, because it's only a small amount of data anyway, and it's not to do with the bandwidth. The bandwidth isn't the problem. It's to do with how the processor processes that data through the bus. That's what's key. Now with Thunderbolt, that distance between your audio interface and the processor is much smaller. It's a direct injection, pretty much, if you like, directly to the CPU, more or less. Less so than or rather better than USB, which has to go, you know, around the houses and up and down and through different things, and then knock on the door and then wait for an answer before it comes through. So Thunderbolt, great, very low latency because it has that direct injection into the bus. But the difference between 2 and 3, I don't know. As I say, I've not tested a Thunderbolt 3 interface. I've tested plenty of Thunderbolt 2 interfaces into Thunderbolt 3 via adapters, and that's just as good as Thunderbolt 1 was, just as good as Thunderbolt 2 was on its own. I've not seen any great improvement using 1 to 2 to 3, if that makes sense. I don't think it's about that. I mean, you're getting 1.5 milliseconds anyway, which is extraordinary, and that should be enough. That should be enough for you. Hungry robot modules, yeah. Yeah, I think they're good. I was hoping that my write-up was so rosy that they'd go, oh, right, he looks like a bloke who knows what he's talking about. Let me send him a bunch. But I haven't heard anything from them. They do look cool, though. I mean, people have asked about the power supply for them because there were a few caveats about power supply on their website, in that it's not as simple as just using a guitar stomp box power supply, or rather it would be if you're just using a couple. But if you're using a whole bunch, you're probably going to have to get something a little bit more serious in terms of power supply. You know, a proper pedal board power supply, which would then sort it out. I'm sorry if you're not up to speed. The Hungry Robot modules are little Eurorack modules, but in stomp box style boxes. So a little box goes in your desktop, and you run something through it and patch something back out again. Brilliant, just absolutely genius. So if you've got a semi-modular like a No Coast or a Mother 32 and you just want to try out a little bit of Eurorack, a little bit more modular, you could buy a little filter, put that down, Eurorack yourself in and out of it, or an LFO or a sample and hold, or a couple of bits and pieces. And it's just a brilliant way of starting to get into modular, of expanding your semi-modular system. For instance, maybe you've got a microbrute or a DFAM, or you've got a Behringer Neutron or something like that. It gives you the opportunity to expand a little bit without having to buy a bloody case and a power supply and all that sort of nonsense. And if you've got guitar pedals already, then you'll probably have a guitar pedal power supply that will run the thing, if you're just using a couple. So I think those are blooming genius. Absolutely genius, and I can't really believe they've not been around before. I mean, we have had things like from Bastille and other bits and pieces, you know, little boxes of stuff, but they tend to be complete voices or complete noise synths in of themselves. I've not seen anything desktop-y, which is just a single module. So yeah, I really enjoyed those very much. I just wish they did them in more colours. I mean, they do quite colourful pedals. Why do all these have to be in kind of like a medical or a Maplin My First Electronics Project type coloured box? Don't know. Right, moving on. Oh, they've got videos for each module online now. Nice, because when I discovered it, I can't remember where I saw it, Instagram I think it was first, started writing about it. There was no information on the website at all. And then by the time I got halfway through writing the article, the products had actually popped up, but there was no individual bits and pieces, just the main information page. So it's interesting they've got a lot more stuff on them now. That's good. I will go and check those out. Oops. Yeah, envelopes, definitely one of the earliest hurdles to get over. Yeah, me too. The maths. The weird thing is about the maths is that sorted me out for envelopes, because it was the only thing I could work out how to do on the maths was an AD envelope, the rise and fall, and that kind of saved me, because I understood that. Not that I don't understand ADSR, but I could make that work. You plug it into something and it worked. And I mean, I remember taking the maths and the Batumi, I think, pretty much that was it, taking that to a synth meet, and I just sat there for a couple of hours and played with modulating the STO with maths and the Batumi and a filter, and that was brilliant. And I learnt that I could shape the sound, so it wasn't just completely sounding, I could finally envelope it. And so yeah, that was the way in, but I didn't get beyond that until very, very recently, and I've been farting around with this for a year, and I've still found envelopes to be a struggle until last month when I got the edge cutter. Oh, I had another thing I can tell you about the edge cutter, which is weird. I was going to show you, but I don't think I can be bothered now, so it required me to take a whole load of stuff apart. But I discovered something weird that I had the edge cutter up here next to my Variegate 4 Plus, and it sat there and it would just cycle the whole time. I mean, if you look at last month's video, it was sitting there cycling the whole time, and I thought nothing of that. But once I started looking into it with a bit more depth, I realized that it shouldn't be doing that. It has no cycle mode on it. You can loop it, but you have to hold the gate open in order for it to loop at the end of it. It's got no cycle button like you have on the maths. And so I started scratching my head. I couldn't work out what on earth is going on here. But what it turns out, what happens is that it had locked to the Variegate with no cables. There's nothing patched in. It had just synced to the Variegate, and I speeded up the Variegate, and that cycle speeded up. Kept going, slowed it down, it went with it. It went with it the entire time. When I did multiples and divisions on the Variegate, it didn't follow it. It only followed the master clock. So this had me scratching my beard. What the heck is that about? It's not plugged into anything. I don't understand. Then I shifted it down here to another row, and it stopped doing it. And it was the first time I've had it without it constantly flashing around the whole time. Very strange. So I popped an email over to Priscilla at This Is Not Rocket Science, and she said that, oh yeah, the edge cutter can accept bus data. Bus data? I said, what's bus data? Apparently, here's a new one on me, at any rate. In the power supply, in the power bus, you can route clock and MIDI, I believe. I haven't quite looked at it deep enough. Through some of the extra pins. Because when you plug in the ribbon cable, I've got one here, you can see that it's, the end that goes into the UARAC is usually this little one here, and the one that goes into the power bus is this one. Can I get those to focus? No, a little bit. Oh, there we go. It's a wider one. Now, this is I'm making stuff up now, because I don't actually know, so I haven't looked into it yet, but I will do. But I'm intuiting that some modules you do get wide at both ends, and that must therefore contain some extra lanes that you can share information up and down the power bus with. I mean, that makes some kind of sense. I mean, it's magical. It's genius. I hadn't thought of that, but presumably you can. So what was happening, I believe, is that the Variegate is kicking out clock over the power bus, and anything else connected into that will sync to it. That's what's going on, apparently. Who knew about that? I've never heard anyone ever talk about power bus MIDI data, sync connections. No one has ever mentioned anything about that at all. Never come across it, ever come across it. It's a whole other thing. There's no end to what you can learn about this malarkey. So I'll look into that at some point and work out what that actually means, or whether I can use it for something, or use it elsewhere. But suffice to say, I now have to have the edge cutter and the Variegate on different rows just to prevent that from happening, because I don't know of a way of disabling it. There we go. Anyway, so what was I saying? I can't remember. Let's have a look. Yep. Greetings, yes, to you too. Oops. Do you mean a fig that rolls down the hill, or a fig roll? I mean, fig rolls, to me, are those little biscuits I had when I was a kid, which had figs inside in a bit of a biscuit roll. I don't recall the sound of those. I recall the sound of them in a biscuit tin. When you shake them, a bit thuddy. But it's probably, when you refer to, do I understand or can I replicate the sound of a fig roll, I imagine that's some kind of, I don't know, electronic music term to which I'm oblivious, I'm afraid. So, unless you can be more specific, I cannot tell you. Yes, DIY series is what I am most excited about. Yes, me too. That was another thing that I had planned to do last week before I realized I had to get the edge cutter stuff done, or some edge cutter stuff done. So I was planning to do my first proper DIY video last week, in which case I will do that this week, I think, if I can, because time is moving on and I need to do a minimum of one a month. And so I must get one done. I was hoping to do my first one quickly because it's not going to be very long. It's about cases and power supplies, and I know what it is I want to say. It won't take very long, although I am going to do a little bit of Blue Peter making of a temporary case, which might take a while. So yeah, that's coming very soon, and then I'm going to start getting into making the modules. So I've got that all lined up. It's just purely scheduling it all in at the moment. So yes, that's definitely coming. So hang in there, because it's going to be great. I'm already getting lots of good comments and advice, which is nice. I like that. Yeah. Well, module acquisition. Yes, I mean one thing that's important to me is that I don't get spoilt by people sending me stuff. I know that sounds crazy, but I don't want to get blasé about it. It has to be part of my reality. You know, I want to have to consider space and modules. I don't want to be overwhelmed by having so many modules I don't know what to do with them. That makes sense. So I just have to step carefully with these things. And also I've got a list in the back of my head of things I want to try out yet. Does that make sense? I don't know. What am I saying? Figaro, I did that one already. Hang on. Latency doesn't work that way. I don't know what that don't know what that refers to. How does latency work? I mean, I had a real, fight with somebody on YouTube about latency that really upset me in the last couple of weeks. I don't understand why these things are so precious to people. It happens every now and again. I mean, as a YouTuber, someone who puts myself out there to speak to the audience with some pretense of authority, do you know what I mean? I mean, I don't ever claim to be an expert on things, but I have done a lot of stuff for a long time, and there are opinions and truths, if you like, that I come across and hold to myself purely because of what I've done and experienced in my life. They're not necessarily wonderfully scientific always, but it's just, the stuff that I do. And other people, of course, will hold other opinions and other reasons based on, I've no idea, based on whatever it is that they believe that they've experienced. And that's fine. And I'm always happy to chat and debate and give reasons for this and reasons for that and reasons why I hold the reasons that I do. And latency is a big one because it's something which affects everybody, and lots of people believe they know lots of things about it, and it just flip-flops around. I mean, I've been talking about latency for 20 years. I mean, I built computers and studio systems, audio computers with audio interfaces before ASIO existed. Before ASIO on the PC, I was building things based on like Korg cards, ADAT cards, stuff like that, Soundscape, if anybody remembers any of that old stuff, pre-ASIO systems. And you were dealing with seconds of latency. I remember when there was a lexicon system that came in which kind of halved it. You could actually press the space bar, and if you kind of coughed slightly, you wouldn't really notice how long it took for it to play back. I've also been in studios where it was a regular 2-second latency between hitting record and it actually recording. And they worked with that because they were flipping professionals, and things like latency are not a problem to people who do things for a living because they work around whatever it is the situation is happening. Like, for instance, if you've got a multi-reel tape-to-tape machine, it's not instantaneously up to speed. It takes time. So when you hit record, you have to wait before you start recording because that's the reality of tape. The reality of PCs can also and has also been like that. Why am I? Oh, this is a shaggy dog story now. I'm just trying to say that I've been dealing with latency for a very, very long time. And it's not necessarily the spectre that people believe it to be. It's not necessarily the problem. And there's lots we can do to minimize latency in many ways. And I've done videos on it. I've done lots of videos on it. I've talked about it. I've demonstrated it. That what you come to realize when you've dealt with a lot of computers and a lot of audio interfaces is that interfaces are different. The drivers are not all the same. The protocols are not all the same. So when you say this audio interface does 5 milliseconds, does it? Great. It will do 5 milliseconds on that particular system. Will it do 5 milliseconds on another system? Maybe, but not necessarily, because there are all sorts of factors in that system which affect the latency. Similarly, the other flip side of latency is that if you have two audio interfaces and they both run at 5 milliseconds, one may be able to do 100 tracks of plugins, the other one might only do 50. Even though they're running through the same protocol, using the same protocol through the same bus, using the same buffer size, that does not mean that they can do the same performance. So commonly you'll find something like RME, an audio interface from RME. They are awesome. They write fantastic drivers. And that means that the CPU performance, because they write good drivers, the processor doesn't have to work as hard. Therefore, more plugins. An audio interface running at the same buffer size with a kind of a crappy driver, because it's, say, a third-party one that's been bought in by someone like, I mean, people who used to buy in drivers were, I'm not saying they do now because things have improved greatly, actually, in the last couple of years. But previously, Focusrite, TC Electronics, Presonus, all of them bought the same third-party driver in, and it was a bit crap. So although you could get down to relatively low latencies, you could only do half the plugin count that the RME audio interface could do. And that sort of factual information, that sort of reality, really messes with people who believe they understand latency when it's talking about buffer sizes and round-trip latencies and tests with science and loopbacks and bits and pieces, because it doesn't necessarily add up. So there you go. So low latency, yes, it's a thing. We all have it nowadays. You've no idea how good it is these days. I mean, I know, sure. You're one of those people who can hear the difference between 1 millisecond and 2 milliseconds. You can hear that. I can't. If I'm playing a keyboard and I'm trying to get playback latency, if it's under 10 milliseconds, I start not feeling it. Round trip latency, in and outs and monitoring through headphones or audio or guitar, that kind of thing. I mean, guitar, shit. I mean, it can be 30 milliseconds, and I don't really notice because I've played on stage where you are miles away from your speakers, from your amplifier, and that's latency. 3 milliseconds per yard, if you like. So if you're 20 feet away from your amp, that's a whole load of latency there. But I'm such a crap, messy guitar player that doesn't matter because my brain compensates and I can work it out. It's all right. It's just latency. So, well, that's fine. If you can hear it and you need to deal with it, then just spend more money. Buy an RME interface or a Motu interface or a Lynx interface, something like that. Spend some money on it and you'll get very, very low latency. That's cool. Do that. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, let's go keep on down. Oops. Don't want to jump, don't want to miss anything. The Turing machine is one that connects by the power bus, is somebody saying? Connects to what? Exactly. Oh, because you can expand it? Is that what you mean? But doesn't it have its own, I don't know, doesn't it have its own header for that to expand it? Oh, I don't know. Oh, someone's retracted a message. That's always exciting. How can I use a real drum set with a Eurorack? Just play along. That's an easy question. You turn on Eurorack, right? Makes a bunch of noise, maybe sequence some stuff up and have it playing, and then get your drumsticks and you drum alongside. It's the easiest thing in the world. Eurorack is an instrument. It's just an instrument. It plays. You can play it. You can get it playing itself. I think you're overthinking it. So if you're a drummer, Eurorack is ideal. Get a mate playing the Eurorack. You just play drums alongside. That's it. You improvise and you play. No click. Don't need a click because you can hear it. Yeah? That's all you need. Easy peasy drum kit with Eurorack. In fact, if you check out some of Look Mum, I've Got No Computer Like, geezer bloke. If you check out some of his stuff, he's done some live performances with just him playing a bunch of synths and Eurorack and a drummer. It's great. Ideal. Perfect. Go do that. What does my wife think about my Eurorack? I don't know. She likes the idea that I'm passionate about things. I think that's what she likes. Same as she's passionate about things. Passionate about her friends, passionate about karate, funnily enough. Yeah, she's... My wife is a wonderfully passionate woman about all sorts of different things, far more sociable than I am, and friends and gaming and tabletop stuff and bits and pieces, mosaic art. She makes these wonderful sort of 3D depth works of art and cards and bits and pieces. She's always thinking and engaging with other people in beautiful, artistic and creative ways. And I think she's just pleased that I have passion for creative things that give me pleasure, give me a purpose, give me something to build with, ultimately, I suppose. So yeah, she loves it. I mean, because I'm running it kind of as a business, it's not necessarily affecting our day-to-day. Like, we're not penniless because I've bought another module. It doesn't really work like that. It might mean that we're never going to be able to retire. That's probably more likely. But that's okay. And also it's a buy and sell thing as well. I've sold also a lot of gear in order to fund this. So that's not the thing it needs to be either. So, I mean, when you're running a business, I am a small business from home, it's expected that you have to put work into it, because the flip side of that, in our situation, in our lifestyle, in our balance of things, is that I work from home. So I'm home. So I can spend a lot of my time doing the childcare, doing the kids stuff, picking up, doing the chores and bits and pieces. And so that's the payoff of working from home, is that I'm here. I'm here with our children. I'm here with the house and doing stuff. And that also means that you have to work outside of hours, because now that the kids are in bed, like tonight, I can now do this sort of thing and I can play with my modular for a few hours. And that's awesome. You know, it's a balance. I think if I had a day job, a 9 to 5, where I went off to work and then came back and then spent all my time in the shed playing on this, I can see how that would be frustrating for someone's partner, because why the hell are you in some kind of partnership if you're not going to spend any time with each other? But thankfully, in our relationship, we are able to spend time with each other because we have such flexible working conditions. And we're very, very fortunate. I am forever thankful for some of the decisions I made a while ago that enable me to be in this position. I don't know how long it will last, but I'm milking it. I'm milking it for all I'm worth. So does that answer your question? I don't know. To trigger it, somebody says. I don't know. Awesome accent. Thank you. Thank you. I can do other... No, I can't do other accents. Well, no, I can. But I really shouldn't. Latency thing. In reply, earlier in the stream, what you were saying about it is all fine. Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, look, I'm getting to the bottom of the comments. That means I'm going to have to think up something else to say. What do you think of DIY PSUs for Eurorack? Any recommendations, and why is the 4MS the better solution? Thank you for the question, Joel. I'll field that one. Yes. The answer to that question is I don't know. I have been researching DIY PSUs for a little while now, and I cannot find an answer. Got close to an answer a little while ago, where I actually found a video of someone who did build one, but it wasn't. It was only a tiny one, like 12 quid it was off Amazon. It's a little micro power supply, and that looks great. It's got good fat capacitors on there, and you can solder that together, and off you go. To build a proper DIY PSU, I think, is incredibly difficult. Not because it's difficult to wire, but because you are in a situation where you are more likely going to blow yourself up. It's just nuts to me that if somebody wants to start doing Eurorack cheaply, that the first thing you have to build is a flipping power supply that's 240 volts or 110 volts or whatever it is. That's dealing with mains electricity. That's nuts. I can't wrap my head around it. Why would you do that? You cannot do that. Who could recommend doing that? Do it after you've been building stuff and soldering stuff together for a couple of years. Once you're comfortable doing that, then deal with live electronics. I mean, for heaven's sake. So I don't want to let too much of the cat out of the bag, but my approach definitely to power supplies and cases is that don't do it. If you are putting together a DIY rack of something, then just get something that's already working. So, for instance, what I've got, all right, I will let the cat out of the bag a little bit then. So for the DIY video I'm going to be doing on power supplies, I am going to heartily recommend this. Okay, I've got one of these already plugged into my little sub rack over here. But this is just the tip-top audio Micro Zeus power supply. Why this one? Well, only because it's cheap. But within this, it's already wired together. And you're only going to be plugging it in with like a laptop power supply, not full mains going into here, which is then being stepped down and fed out across your case. No, that's all going to be done in the other power supply. So your laptop power supply comes into here, and here you've just got 5 volts and 12 volts to worry about. So you're not going to kill yourself, even if you stick your tongue on it. I recommend doing that. And that's what I heartily recommend. Get something like this. Why the 4MS one's better? I don't know. I have no idea. But when I first put this case together, I had a choice between getting this, which I didn't really like that much for reasons. What reasons? Don't remember. The 4MS one seemed posher, and so therefore was probably going to do a better job, but again, for no reason. Excuse me. Because when people talk about power supplies, they talk about it in mystical terms. None of it makes any sense. They talk about, oh, well, it depends on the modules, man, how much current draw there is. Which is true, I guess. But where would you get that information from? Modular grid, I suppose. You put it together on there, and then you have to work out, what does that mean? Because, I mean, when I was putting my first rack together, all I wanted someone to tell me was that it's okay to get this power supply because it's going to run a dozen modules. That information was just not available. It was not out there. I asked everybody and searched everywhere. Could not find anything. And in the end, through a few forum posts and bits and pieces, even delving around on Muff Wiggler, I eventually came to the conclusion that a 4MS row power supply could run 1 to 2 rows of 104 HP, say. So to me, I thought, well, I'm going to run 1 row of 104 HP. So I went for the 4MS row power, a single one. Now, there's the row power 30 and the row power 40. The 30 is slightly less powerful, but it's white, and white upset the aesthetic of my rack. So I didn't want to get the white one, so I got the 40, which is overkill. 40 will run 2 rows of this, I reckon. So I got it to run 1 row because I liked it, and it was black. It was more expensive, you know, twice the price, I think, of the tip-top one, but it looked nice. And so when I went into other rows, oh yeah, the other thing I liked is the chaining, the fact you can chain it together. So you can plug in one laptop power supply, and that chains the power to the next one, chains the power to the next one. That I thought was genius. So that's another reason why I went for the 4MS. I really appreciated that, but I had to get the 40 for each row just so it looked nice. And that probably cost me an extra 30 quid per row just to get the black one rather than the white one. So, so that was it. But for my power supply DIY video, I'm going to be mostly talking about budget. You know, how do you get a reliable power supply that's not going to blow you up for under 100 quid? That's my aim, and the tip top is more or less the solution to that. And I'll give you a fuller explanation of that in the video to come, hopefully this week or something. But, you know, I implore you not to be crazy and to solder together your own power supply. I don't think that's a wise move when you're starting out trying to do a DIY rack in Eurorack. At least I will recommend against it. I'm sure there's plenty of people who do. That's cool. That's fine. You do that, man. But I ain't going to do it. I ain't going to do it until... I mean, I'd like to think that I will be building a bigger case at some point. Or will I? Am I really that sort of carpenter? Too many skills involved in Eurorack, man. Too many. At some point, you've got to be able to not do something. I suppose. Does that answer the question? I don't know. Okay. Let me go back up to where that question came from. Oh, look, everyone's said stuff now. Let's go up back up a little bit. Yeah, there we go up to that. What do I think about? Yeah, okay, that was it. Do all DAWs have a distinct sound? Some people believe this. Change to a different drink. I remember many years ago when Samplitude from Magix these days, it used to be by SecD back in the day, they came out with the first 24-bit 96K DAW, and that sounded completely different to everything else. And that was the first time I think that I thought, yeah, maybe DAWs do sound different. I mean, I guess it makes some kind of sense because they all have their own algorithms when you do a mix down, which is interlacing and mixing and dithering that audio together. So therefore, because the software itself is processing the audio, and that software is written individually by different coders in different places using different algorithms, therefore it has to sound, I guess, different. The same as different makes of tape sound different, different tape recorders sound different, different converters sound different, I guess. Is that important? I don't know. Maybe there's a sound that you're after that one does that. I know. I don't think. I don't think DAWs have a character to their sound. They may sound different, but you would mix to compensate for that. I think you'd do a mix down, you listen to it, and you'd go back and you'd make changes. I think you work within the sonic environment that you're in, and so it doesn't actually matter whether these things sound different with the same project mixing down in the same way, because you adapt and you work with it. Does that make sense? That's what I think. So yeah, I would agree that DAWs probably have their own sound, but I'm not convinced that that's important. You see, so why in there, which is lovely, a lovely comment, just to say that if you are looking at DIY, then DIY PSUs are not the hardest thing in the world to either design yourself or build from scratch. That's awesome. I love the fact that you feel that way. The idea of me designing a power supply, no, I don't even know where to start. I have no concept of that. In fact, there's a video I mean to watch very soon. It's Tom from Music Thing, who designed the Touring, did a talk on how to design a module when you've never designed one before. I imagine that's fascinating, because I don't have any concept of how you'd even begin to do that. I mean, I have, well, I say I've designed circuits in the past. No, I've copied circuits out of magazines, which I've then slightly altered for myself back in university, back in 19... So, yeah, I did a little bit of that. But, no, I haven't first clue how you design a power supply. Not the first clue. No, not the first clue. So, that's great. Because it's fab. I just think it's amazing that there are so many different levels to this, that some people believe you could do this, you could do this, you could do anything you like, you can design this. And I hear from people who said, oh yeah, I watched one of your videos and was inspired to start Eurorack, and now I'm starting my own company building modules. It's like, how the hell did that happen? I mean, you know, I might have done a video on how an idiot puts together their first system, but there's no way that inspiration led to them being able to design their own modules. That just seems up here somewhere, heads and shoulders above anything that I'd ever thought of. Maybe it's just I don't give things enough thought. I don't know. I'm sure there are people out there who can do that, but that's not where I am. I don't have the headspace for that. So I'm going to take things slow, take things small, I'm going to take things at the beginning and obviousness of things, and assuming that the people enjoying my videos are of a similar bent. Because we can't all be experts, can we? I'm sure there are plenty of people who are, but we can't all be that person, I think. Will I be doing a module giveaway? What do you want? What is it you want from me? A module giveaway? Tell you, trying to do giveaways is notoriously difficult. I've done a couple. I gave away a Surface Pro a year or so ago, I think, and the vast majority of entries were for bots. They were, I mean, I drew entries out of the hat and tried to get in contact with these what I thought were people, and they were nearly always bots, and so never replied in any sensible kind of way. It was just ridiculous. So competitions, I'm not sure about that anymore. I don't think they're worthwhile. I'm not quite sure what they achieve. Now, on the other hand, if I had something that I could give away, I'd love to. I don't have anything at the moment. Maybe that will happen. I don't know. Maybe it could be, maybe if I can approach it differently, do it in a different way. I don't know. I have to give it some thought. Give it some thought. Oh, well, there you go. So no, I've got nothing to give away. No, Sodja. No, nothing for you, mate. And you're now banned from every competition that... No, not really. If there's something you'd like me to give away and you think that'd be interesting, you think it would gather me another 1,000 viewers, subscribers, then I would certainly consider it. How am I getting on with track 1? Yeah, I haven't touched it since I did the video, sadly, because that's kind of how my life goes. I focus on something, then I have something else to focus on, and I don't often get the chance to come back round again. However, there's been an update to track 01, which solves a lot of the problems that were in the first one, because they've listened. Most importantly, the fact that you couldn't play it on a keyboard. You know, the keyboard only triggered patterns. It didn't actually let you play the bass line. Whereas now you can, which is better. That's much better. So I'm going to have another go at that, I think, very soon. Yes, very soon. But no, I haven't developed any more from that initial point of enthusiasm. Excuse me. Yeah, I did check out the Synth DIY guy. That was interesting because he just built that. Yeah, no, fascinating. Yes, okay. I mean, it's interesting to me. It's interesting to me simply because I find things interesting and I'm in this world. Now, I will continue to repeat that I have no special knowledge and I don't claim any authority. I'm just talking about stuff that I see and things that I experience. And I watched the Synth DIY guy build the Erica Synths bass module, is it? The one that's like a complete bass voice that comes from their new techno system. Yeah, really nice. But gracious, the speed with which he went through that build was just extraordinary. And I sat there thinking, good Lord, there's a whole load of stuff here that he's not talking about, that he's, or that he is talking about, that I'm just going, what? So I think from that, not to say anything against this guy because he knows what he's doing, but that's the thing. That's the thing. It's obvious that he knows what he's doing. And his authority is there in his voice and in his actions because he's showing you exactly that he knows exactly what he's doing. But because of that, I think it makes it more difficult to access for people who are working this out themselves, like myself. And so you just kind of have to sit back and watch it, and you don't really learn anything because it's all a little bit too high up. It's all a little bit too presumed, or he assumes a whole bunch of knowledge, which maybe you would. And that's why I think I have a little bit of a niche in here, is because I bring the blunder, I bring the crashing into these things and talking about and experiencing the discovery, the revelation, the first attempt at doing something. You know, I think it will be a shame if I lose that naivety somehow, as this guy certainly has, because he knows what he's doing. That makes for a great video, but it doesn't help me as someone who's trying to learn about it, because I didn't really learn that much. I felt it all happened too fast, and the language I didn't understand, all that kind of thing. So yeah, interesting, but also, you know, interesting and encouraging. And I think that my approach and what I'm trying to do is significantly different from what he's doing, which allows them both to exist, if that makes sense. Yeah, because I don't want to be just doing the same thing as somebody else necessarily. I want to be bringing something new, something, you know, new and important to the world. And in some ways, I think perhaps I am, or could, or may. Tip-top happy ending kit. Yes and no. Yes, because it's a good solution. No, because I just hate the way it looks. I can't stand those rack ears. Oh, no, ow, awful. Hate them. Rack ears, ugh. Yeah. So yeah, the happy ending kit is great, except for the rack ears. And also it's 130 quid, as opposed to if you buy it without the rack ears, which you can do, it's under £100. I should know. That's what I've done. So there you go. Is the Micro Zeus better or worse than the 4MS then? Oh, worse. No, definitely worse. Simpler. Its LEDs are harsher. It's got this big blue thing on here. Can you see that? No, you can't. I'm just going to, hopefully, can I see that? Can you see that? No, I really can't. Anyway, it's got these really offensive blue LEDs. Offensive only because they're just very bright, very big. So the Micro Zeus is fine. It also gets a bit hot, whereas the 4MS does not. Otherwise, it's all right. I mean, you hear people talking about these things in their reliability and their stability and the amount of current that they draw, and you know, all those good meaty wise words. My experience of power supplies in Eurorack is purely that I don't have a big enough rig for it to be a problem. I mean, one of the first seminars I listened to at Synth Fest a couple of years ago, when I first, before I'd bought anything, when I first started getting into this, Divkid was hosting a bunch of luminaries up on this thing, and they were talking about power supplies, and it was mystical. It was a whole nother world of alien language of stuff. And talking about power supplies, and oh yeah, how terrible it is when you plug in a module and then you've got this slight dip in something, and or your oscillators aren't tracking, and that's down to the power supply. But they've got huge rigs. They've got 12U of stuff going on that they're trying to run through some kind of designed themselves DIY power supply that no one understands. And so they start having odd, weird things happening. I think if you buy something off the shelf and you have a row or two, you're never going to run into any problems. So the Micro Zeus will do you fine, I think. And from my point of view, this could all be Micro Zeus's. That would be fine, although then I would have 3 power supplies hanging off the edge of this, which would be a major drag. But there would be no difference, I believe, no difference at all in the functionality of my rig. I got the 4MS because I wanted to make sure I got it right, because from seminars like that, it made me worry. I worried about the power supply more than anything else. And so I aimed as high as I could. If I could find something posher and more expensive than the 4MS Row 40, I would have got that. But I couldn't. So I went for as high as I could possibly find. And I think it's unnecessary. Row 30 would have been fine. Tip top would have been fine. But other than the fact I'd probably need 1 in each row, and that's a lot of power supplies. So I like the chaining thing. Back to the chaining thing. Yeah. Okay. Good. The DOFA thing. Yeah. I mean, DOFA do that A100 case. Oops, I've gone past it now. Where did that go? I just don't like it. I don't like it as a case. The big silver thing with A100 written on it. It doesn't float my boat, man. It doesn't. And you kind of buy it as a case and it's done. I'm being a little bit more grassroots than that. So the whole DIY thing, I'm going to, make a case out of cardboard, essentially. That's the plan. Because we want to keep the budget down. And we don't need a case, kinda, straight away. I don't think. I think it's worthwhile trying to start cheaply, get a couple of modules and see whether it's resonating with you. Do that first before investing in a big thing. That's what I think. I think that's what people want to hear. And I'm happy to supply that. Coma have power modules too? Do you mean Coma Laboratories, the people who make the things that bang into things? I hadn't seen that. Okay. What camera am I using? I'm using a Canon EOS 70D. There you are. And recent purchases have revolutionized, since doing the live stream, because it kept getting me in a muddle. I've now got a much longer data cable, which goes to my computer over there, to my desktop computer, which has a much better internet connection. And so I had to buy a longer one of those, and I bought a power supply battery thing that goes in, which is connected to a power supply, so it doesn't run out of battery halfway through, which is a problem I had before. So yeah, I use a Canon. It's brilliant. It's one of my best purchases, actually, that Canon. I do all my videos with it, photography with it. It's awesome. It's really inspired me to become a better photographer and a better videographer, etc., etc. It's really so much better than this horrible camcorder I got up here a few years before that, which I have for the overhead shots, which is not ideal. I'd like to have 2 proper SLR cameras, but I don't have the budget for that at the moment. So the one is good and it's brilliant. I love it. Yes, I have awesome shirts. I've actually managed to pick up a couple of new ones because Joe Brown's, where I get most of my shirts from, it has occasional sales, and you can pick them up for the ones that other people don't like very much, I suppose. So I tend to pick those up. But I was planning to wear one this evening, but we were out this afternoon. I ran out of time to change, so I'm actually sort of sweaty and grubby from the day, wearing one of my more classic ones now. But I do try to vary it as much as I can because it's nice. It's nice. In fact, the other day, last week, we went to Cromer, pick up some chips and eat the chips on the pier. And as I was hanging out while some of the kids went to the toilet, this woman came past and said, "Oh, Joe Brown's shirt." And I said, yeah. And she said, yeah, she buys them for all the men that she knows in her life every now and again, sort of like at Christmas, that kind of thing, just to inject some life into the men in her life. And which I thought was a fantastic thing to do, because men need a lot of encouragement often. I mean, obviously being extremely general, but as a gender, clothes-wise, shirts-wise, we can be a bit crap. And I think encouraging people into exploring shirts is a good thing. And for me, my personal tip would be try to avoid anything that's white with a pattern. I don't like that at all. I like non-white and patterns. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, I used to be a hippie and a goth. I mean, so don't take style tips from me. I don't know where I'm going next. Yeah, the Peak District is fabulous. Yes. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for stopping by. It's good to have you. I'm bound to go on for a bit longer yet, so who knows? And you can always listen back to it again. I mean, I recommend that you all go back and listen to this at least 3 times, because there'll be nuggets of awesomeness in here that you might have missed first time around because you were looking at the telly or something. GMSN Pure Power Strip. Super easy. Okay, cool. Yes. I agree. Kill yourself by designing a power supply. A shirt giveaway. Now, I did reach out to Joe Brown's, actually. I sent them a letter saying, you know that I'm selling loads of your shirts, because people keep asking. And I was kind of hoping they'd go, oh, yes, so you do. Hey, have a whole bunch of shirts. But no, they didn't. But if they did, I would give some away. Yes, I would. Yeah, no, the patrons aren't bots. No, I appreciate that. And patrons, we need to get together to work out something special that I can do for you, because I don't feel I'm giving you enough attention, and you deserve attention because you're fabulous, completely awesome. So you need to, let me know, what can I do for you guys that would make it even more worthwhile to support me. What are my thoughts on the Behringer Model D? Would it make a good first hardware synth? Oh yeah, I think so. Now, controversial as it may seem, the Model D is quite a basic synth. The Moog Model D, quite a basic synth. There's not a whole lot going on there. I think there are more interesting synths in the world. I think even the Neutron is a more interesting synth. I think there's a lot of other things you can do. I mean, it's a classic sound, I suppose, but the attraction to it for me, the Moog one, is the fact that it's a piece of furniture. The same as you'd have a piano sitting in your house. You'd have one of those sitting in your house. I think that's the attraction of it, not necessarily because it's the most fantastic synthesizer in the world, although it sounds great. It just has, its limitations. And so the Behringer version of that, yeah, it's great. It's a great little synth. I think there are more interesting things you can buy with a few $100s. There you go. Mother 32, for instance. Although, of course, it's probably more expensive, a lot more expensive. But the No Coast, the Mother 32, the Neutron, the Microvolt, the Pittsburgh Microvolt. That's interesting. The Dreadbox new one, Medusa. Quite interesting. Or the Erebus 2. Interesting also. But yeah, I've got no problem with the Model D. I think Behringer have done a great job. I don't like the form factor particularly, although of course it's exactly the same form factor as the Mother 32, I guess. It's just they've made everything quite small and fiddly. I think that's a shame. But, there you go. So yeah, I've got no problem with it. It's fine. It's fine. It's good. Mylar Melodies did a DIY video. Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff. He's a very cool guy. Very cool guy. I look up to him, I think. Yeah, if I can get anywhere near his kind of level of quality and I mean, I'll never reach his level of knowledge, I don't think. He knows what he's talking about. And he also has a really good approach. A very entertaining, again, discovery. I like the way he discovers things, or appears to discover things as he goes. I think that's his particular strength. So yeah, no, I appreciate his videos too. I think they're great. But yes, I am trying to do a series of things, and I still haven't fully realised the amount of time that may take, because I haven't properly started yet. Grandmother, yeah, I agree. Grandmother looks great. Yeah, that was a funny one. When that came out, all the sort of the shade people were throwing, and it looks like something from Fisher-Price. Yeah, I mean, have they looked at the history of Moog synthesizers? It's full of crazy colors, man. Lots of weirdness going on in there, in synthesis in general. I thought it was perfectly pitched. Perhaps the hard plastic of it, perhaps, is the only thing that makes me go, oh, really? But otherwise, I think it looks great. It's brilliantly laid out. It's not this patch bay nonsense, which I don't like very much. I don't like the patch bay thing over on the right, like with the Mother 32. I don't think that's great. I prefer patch points to be where the modules are, where the sound is. I much prefer that. And that's what you get with the Grandmother. So yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That would be, if I could rewind back to the beginning where I bought the Mother 32 and the No Coast, maybe I would have bought a Grandmother if such a thing had existed. But if I did, would I then have gone into Eurorack? I don't know. We could never answer that question. But it's a good synth. I agree. Good synth. Yeah, interesting what you say about the No Coast, because I have a No Coast. I bought it shortly after my other 32. It's one of those things I sort of ordered it accidentally. It's the only way I can explain it. But it hasn't taught me anything. It's probably not a popular comment, I don't think. The Mother 32 taught me an awful lot. The No Coast has just confused me. Every time I sit down with it, I get confused. I know that there are some magical sounds in there, and I have produced some magical sounds at times, particularly at a synth meet when I sit down with it for a couple of hours and have some beers, and things start to emerge out of the muddiness. But it confuses me. I find it difficult. I don't properly understand it, I don't think, because it's not subtractive synthesis, which is something that I get along with much better. It's a different sort of synthesis, so I'm never convinced that I know what I'm doing or what I'm trying to achieve. So it ends up sort of creating the same sort of sound. Again, a bit bleepy. I don't know. I can't work out the difference between slope and contour, particularly which sound am I hearing, what's the balance thing going on, how I wire it into my other Eurorack effectively. I don't know. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's sitting over there and it's plugged in because I love the lights on it. The lights are brilliant. And I remember at the Synth Fest a couple of years ago when I was, again, first checking this out, I played with a number of them on different stands and got some great sounds out of it. Really enjoyed playing with it, and that's why I've ended up having one. But it's destined, I think, to be moved along because I don't use it. I don't find it that fun, sadly, because it's beautiful. I'm sure I know lots of people have it, and it's fantastic. It's like with clouds. Remember, I got rid of clouds. Everyone loves clouds, kind of except for me. I didn't like it very much, so I sold it. No Coast, it's fantastic. Everybody believes it's fantastic, and it is, but I just don't end up using it. I have far more fun messing around with this nonsense than I do with that. But people are different. That's all. People are different, and so I will take the unpopular route and suggest that I'm not that into the No Coast. Yeah. Reading the manual. Yeah, that's probably what you did. See, there's your mistake right there. You start reading manuals, you'll start learning stuff and understanding it. Can't have that. No. If you can't endure it your way in, then I don't want to hear about it. Aruba's version 3? Really? Version 2 was the pulse width modulation edition. Was it? I thought the version 2 is the one where they've added the new oscillator. Isn't that right? Was that now version 3? Oh, I get confused. Anyway, we haven't seen it since NAMM. I think they showed. Or did they show it? Yeah, I think they showed it at NAMM. Haven't seen it since then. Don't know what's going on with that. I think they're too busy being very cool with Polyend and the Medusa. That Dreadbox don't really know what to do themselves anymore. How can they maintain that level of cool design? I don't know. Pinnacle sound cards. Where did that come from, Martin? What's that about? Now, if you want a story, about Pinnacle sound cards, I can tell you that. Back in the day, there was the one or two. Turtle Beach, right? Turtle Beach used to be the best sound cards / audio interfaces, because there weren't audio interfaces then. There was just sound cards. They were actual cards that went in the computer. They made the best. They made the best ones. And there was what was the other one? Because there was the Pinnacle. The Pinnacle was the big one. But there was one called the Tahiti or the Sierra Tahiti, which was the one without the sample RAM. Because the awesome thing was with the Pinnacle was that you would put memory on it and it was a sampler. So this was an ISA card, an ISA card, go inside your computer, nice long deep one. It will provide audio in and out, pre-ASIO, I think. I can't remember now. I have to look it up. And it had RAM slots on the end of it that you could put physical RAM in, and it could be a sampler, a proper sampler, like the Akai samplers in the rack over there, and the EMU samplers, because this was the time of the hardware sampler. And it was fantastic. Real sampling inside your computer, low latency. It would work. And I sold one of these to Peter Davison. Peter Davison, as in, who used to be Doctor Who. because I used to work in a music shop. Sorry if that's not clear. I used to work in a music shop in London called Turnkey, a big, famous, massive music shop. And at one time, I ran the computer music department. And this was early days of computer music. But this was actually before I ran the department. I had another guy running it, and I was just a shop floor sales guy at that time. And so, yeah, I sold Peter Davison a Pinnacle. I don't know what he was doing. I never worked out what sort of music he was doing. But he used to come in a lot and buy gear and use, you know, Cubase audio, as it was called in those days, and a Turtle Beach Pinnacle sound card. Is that what he's talking about? I have no idea, but somebody mentioned Pinnacle sound cards. But yeah, it was like they also had the sample cell from DigiDesign, now Avid, of course, which you could also put sample RAM on. But you could put, I think, up to 4 megabytes, 4 whole megabytes, kids, 4 megabytes of sample space you could have on that thing. And it was the bomb. Yeah, total. It was amazing, that thing. This was before everything else you could actually get audio into and out of your computer. Now, at the time when I started at Turnkey, I happened to have a full duplex sound card because I had avoided Creative Labs with all their half duplex nonsense, and I'd bought something called the New Sound from Orchid, and it just happened to do full duplex recording, which means you could record and listen at the same time. I mean, outstanding. And that was kind of when I understood that computers were just the greatest thing ever. Because before that point, up until this was in 1996, I joined Turnkey, I think it was, and up to that point I've been using 4-track and cassette tape for recording. I'd done a little bit of sound tools in college, but otherwise it was mostly analog tape. And I'm a terrible sloppy guitarist, and I was used to doing multi-layered audio recording where you would, you know, I would hand do some drums, some finger banks and drums, do a bit of recording, a little bit of lead, then sing over the top, layer after layer on cassette, rewinding, recording, overdubbing, that sort of thing. My first experience of digital recording on my humble PC was when, after I got the job at Turnkey, they gave me a copy of Digital Orchestrator Plus. And this was a piece of digital audio recording software. It was a sequencer as well, MIDI sequencer as well. And I stuck it on my computer, and I could record some guitar in, and then I could record another bunch of guitar while listening to the other guitar backwards. As I say, that was a rarity in PCs at that time, to have full duplex 2-directional sound rather than 1-directional sound as you got from Creative Labs Sound Blaster cards. And I did that. I laid down a couple of tracks, and then what I did, because I played like for a minute of guitar, I was able to isolate a couple of bars, so I was playing to a click track, a couple of bars of where I got it right, and I could copy and paste it. Copy and paste audio. Just like that. And that was it. Bam, I was sold. It's like, flipping heck, this is going to just revolutionize the world. Or at least it's going to revolutionize my crappy little demos from all this really random guitar into it actually being right all the way through. Fantastic. Oh, it's just the most amazing thing ever. Digital audio. Just, you know, mind blown. Right, so anyway, that's just a little glimpse into my past there. Thank you for that, Martin. Meanwhile, you've been talking about other things. You'd love a Spitfire. Do you mean an aeroplane? They always were nice. Few of them around these days. Strings module. What are you referring to? I don't know. I've lost the thread of this now. Peter Davison did the theme song for the TV show Campion. Really? Well, I bet he made that, right, with stuff that I sold him. Yeah, there you go. I don't know that he was my favourite Doctor, but he was of my era. I mean, I love Tom Baker. Don't remember John Pertwee that much. A bit of John Pertwee. I remember the change from Pertwee, oh God, to Tom Baker, and then Tom Baker was my guy. Peter Davison came along, and it was still good, still cool, and I started losing it, I think, after that. So I enjoyed Peter Davison. I enjoyed him more in It Shouldn't Happen to a Vet. Anyway, oops. Let's go back a little bit. Oh, wow, a whole load of stuff coming while I was running on about other stuff. How are we doing? Okay, it's getting on towards 10:30. You sold clouds twice. I know, I just couldn't get to grips with it. I tried, I really tried, and yes, it did some interesting stuff, but not, it was the same interesting stuff all the time. I couldn't make it gel. I really couldn't. So I stopped wasting my time on it. That was the thing. I'd much rather spend time on something like the Edge Cutter, which just seems to keep revealing more and more interesting stuff. So yeah. Yeah, the No Coast is more random. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, no, I get it. I get the No Coast. It does that, and it becomes entertaining. Yeah, I don't know how to explain why it's not working for me exactly. I find that every time I sit down with it, it's just not. It makes me work too hard, or something. I don't know. I probably need to properly learn it. Maybe that's the answer, as it is the answer to anything. Yeah. Suzanne Kiani at the proms? No, I missed that completely. I'm just so out of the zone. Do I have a push? No, do not have a push. I have a launch pad. Yeah, the original launch pad. But because I'm into touchscreen technology and far as Surface goes, then the push is not really my bag, man. I mean, I've had a machine. I had a machine too. Played a lot with that. I have a launch pad. Launch pad is phenomenally helpful, I think. Just if you're using Ableton and you're performing live with that, found that very useful. I can see how a push would also be useful for that. But I've not moved into that area. I think I kind of made a decision because I got hold of an Ovation circuit a couple of years ago, and I sort of had to make a decision as to which way I was going to go. I was at the time thinking it was my first kind of push into hardware after using software for a decade or two. The Ovation circuit sort of drew me out into hardware again and started me thinking more about hardware. And that is what brought me to synthesis, back to synthesis, to the Mother 32, and then to all this nonsense. And there was a stage when I was using Machine, I used Machine Live a couple of times, and using Circuit, that I could have gone a more desktop route with controllers like Push, like another machine, like Electron stuff, other desktop bits and pieces. Could have gone that route, but I was pulled into Eurorack, and I don't think you can do, well, of course people do both. Everybody, loads of people do both. I don't have the budget to do both. I don't have the time to learn both. So I went for Eurorack. So yeah, no, I don't have a Push 2. What do I think of the Deluge? Looks great. No, doesn't look great. Functionality, great. It's always looked a little bit weird to me. I've never seen one in real life. But I thought it seemed crowded. However, as I've watched more tutorial videos on it, it does seem more interesting. You can do more stuff. I didn't realize quite how transformational it was in how you approach things. So you can do sequencing on it, you can do patterns on it, all sorts of stuff. I think it's an awesome product. I'd just like to see one in the flesh, really, because the look of it somehow doesn't immediately say to me, "Oh, this is going to be easy to use." So, yeah, no, I think it's a very interesting box. Do I know Ants? Yeah, came across that, written about it. Remember the Kickstarter campaign? In fact, I gave them money on Kickstarter, not to buy one, because I couldn't. I just gave them a $5 or something, so I thought it was a great little thing. I haven't really thought about it since, I have to say. You own Soundkeep, you owned an SW1000. Yeah, I had an SW60. Oh yes, I had an SW60 on the back of, no, SW60 stood by itself. Yeah. So I bought, that's right, it's a DB50 that sat on the back of a card. Yeah, when I first because I finished university. Okay, a bit more life history then. I finished university in 1996. I graduated with a first-class honours degree in musical instrument technology. I built flutes. I built Baroque flutes and studied Chinese folk music and electronics. There you go. There's a mixture for you. And then I got a job in a bank at Chase Manhattan Bank, which I turned down before I had to start. So I got through the interviews and then turned it down because I thought, I don't want to work for a bank. This is nuts. I mean, you know, I looked a state. I had huge hair. I had dreads, I think, at that point. And I don't know how I got through the videos, through the interviews, rather. So instead I thought, sod it, I'm going to work in a music shop. Because that would be cool, right? So I've got a degree in that. And so before I went for the interview at Turnkey, I bought from them a Yamaha SW60 because I thought I better, you know, learn something and get into, because I was into PCs, been into PCs for years, but for gaming, not for really music making. And so I wanted to, that seemed to be my angle. I thought that would be interesting. So I got an SW60, which came with Cakewalk Express back in those days. And that was my first PC sequencing experience with that and the SW60, which was awesome. Well, what was awesome about the SW60 and the SW1000 was the editor, the XGEdit editor, which got you into everywhere. And you could start automating filters and bits and pieces. Fantastic. So it was a great thing, an absolutely wonderful thing. The SW1000 was awesome. There's nothing quite like it. You know, a whole synth on a card. Yes, it was. You want to give clouds another go? I would wait for the next clouds. I would, because Mutable Instruments are working on, as we understand it, Mutable Instruments are working on another clouds. I would wait for the next one. Yeah. Yeah. Matt Smith was your favourite Doctor. Oh, that means you're really young. That's nice. I mean, if I could choose a favourite Doctor actually thinking about it, probably Christopher Eccleston, because he's just so flipping awesome. That was just the most amazing reboot of Doctor Who ever. I mean, I love Sylvester McCoy as a bloke. Fantastic. Love that guy. But Doctor Who was out of its tree in those days. And it was so good to get it back at the quality, at the level of Christopher Eccleston was just awesome. It hasn't been completely awesome since, but it's been mostly so. And, you know, I've enjoyed all of the Doctors since then. Although I've not watched it religiously at all because my kids get scared of it. They didn't like it, so we didn't watch it. But I mean to get back to that at some point. Right. W30 still only has half a meg. Half a meg of what? What's a W30? Okay. Oh, no. I don't want to keep jumping. Sorry, just going back up. Okay. Finger bang some drums. Yes, indeed. Have you seen my finger drumming? My finger drumming is sublime. You should check that out. Yeah, remember Turnkey? Great. Oh, that's a nice handle, man. Thank you. I knew hair. That's Norfolk, that is. You must be a local. You purchased a Korg 800 and a D50 from Turnkey. Yeah, that is showing your age. Yeah, I sold my own D20 at Turnkey to some poor idiot. Didn't know they'd shut down. Really? God, that was ages ago. Long time. I mean, I left in 2005. I think they struggled on for another 5 years. They were bought by Sound Control. Then Sound Control disappeared, and then it all... yeah, it all went. It's now a Chipolatas. Chipolate? I don't know. But it was quite a thing for quite a number of years. Turnkey, love it, hate it. We all felt like that. We loved it and we hated it. It had its draw, man. It had its ability to be a, a fantastic place. And I know that Red Dog Music up in Edinburgh and also in London now was one of the things that came out of Turnkey, because Alex, who runs Red Dog, used to work for Turnkey, and I can tell. I mean, we're still in communication and stuff. Still know some of these guys. That when he set up Red Dog, it was definitely to take all the great things about Turnkey, because there were great things, and try to leave all the shit behind, because there was a lot of that too. Unfortunately, just in a big shop, those sorts of things occur. And I think he's done a really good job. You know, I think Red Dog seems to me to be an excellent shop, and that's something that's really taken what we all learned at Turnkey and made it into something awesome. Have I thought about the music thing, radio music? Yes, I have. But I'm getting a sample, or rather, I've already got or ordered a sample slicer, which I think is something's, well, it is different but similar, something which is old school sampling in a module kind of way. But so I don't think I'm going to need both necessarily. But yes, I had thought about it. All right. Okay. Don't know what that means. Does the neutron need tuning? I don't know. Does the Bogue, does the Behringer Model D need tuning? I don't know. What do you mean by tuning? I mean, all oscillators have knobs that tune it, so it can be whatever you like. We're not in 440 land anymore, man. When you're talking about proper synthesizers, they all have tuning knobs. So the neutron, yeah, it will need tuning. It's not going to sit there in equal temperament for you. That's not how synthesizers work. Well, at least, you know, analog synthesizers. Who are you, man? What's your plan? What's your plan? You want a 50s car? What? Oh, anyway. Okay, the Deluge isn't crowded. It's beautifully laid out. Awesome. Well, like I say, I'd like to get my hands on one, because some of these bits of gear are difficult to work out. You know, size and dimensions and physicality of it purely from videos. It's really hard to see sometimes. And I'd really like to have one of these in my hand so that I understand how well that works. Because, I mean, to start with, when they launched, the videos about it were terrible. And the photography was terrible. It was really hard to grasp what it was about and what it was offering. Because there didn't seem to be anyone who would just go, hey, look, this Deluge, right, it does this, and then it does this. The sort of review that I would do, you know, I'd sit down and give it some serious time. Nobody would seem to be doing that. And that was frustrating, because it seemed to be something which had enormous power. Enormous power. Do you see my arm, where my arm came out like that? But was badly explained, I felt. Oh, I can't read the manual. Oh, that sucks. Well, I've had to read the manual a little bit, because writing articles on it, news articles for Gear News, as I do, I've had to, because no one's explaining it very well, I've had to read bits of the manual in order to understand what it is that I'm saying about it. If that makes sense. Ah, so it wouldn't jump like that. Come back, come back, come back. Oh, the Roland W30 keyboard sampler. Yeah, right. Okay, 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 okay. Right, to anyone who's watching, because I've now had a bit too much whiskey, and time is getting on, and we started an hour late as it is. We're going to start winding it down soon. But I enjoy the conversation very, very much. I really appreciate people coming and hanging out and asking questions that I can give hackneyed answers to, and stuff. It's good. So I'll keep going for as long as I'm still lucid, okay? But please let me know if I start babbling more than usual, and we can shut this thing down. But I don't want to miss people's questions. I don't want anyone not to feel special. You know, if you've asked something and I miss it, that hurts. You know, and I understand how you'd feel bad about it. I have a Vauxhall Saphira. Okay. Yeah, no, this is one of my favorite shirts. Yes, but I have a better, well, not a better one, a new one. Actually, it's quite similar, but it's more greeny. That I was planning to wear, but you have to go back to the beginning of the video to understand why I'm not. That's unlikely to become clear at this time. Hi, Scott of Oakland. Hi, welcome, welcome. Coming a little bit late to the party, I think. You missed K9. There was a K9 show with Sarah Jane at one time, which was terrible. But there we go. The Morphogeny, someone says. Oh, well, I mean, for sampling, Eurorack sampling, the... yeah, the Morphogeny. I mean, could that be any more pompous? Oh, you can tell I've been drinking now, because I think the Morphogeny is awesomely creative. What a thing! But it's one of those. It's one of the things. I mean, Make Noise are an amazing company producing some awesomely creative modules, but also they do tend to sort of disappear up their own arse sometimes with the way they talk and describe about stuff. I mean, it may just be them. I don't know. I mean, I make this mistake in making assumptions and judging modular makers of stuff because I don't really know. And sometimes it's like, I mean, I've talked about this before with noise engineering, how they came across as a bit nutty and arrogant, I think, until I understood that they were mostly joking about everything, about the silly names I have for things, because they just find it amusing. And that's really cool, and I love that now. But I didn't know that, and so I felt a bit off with them. Make Noise is the same. I mean, the guy who's always doing their voiceovers, he's got such a drawl, such an accent, that I love it and kind of a bit wary of it all at the same time. And so I kind of hope that he's kind of really cool and funny and self-deprecating, but it also can come across a little bit kind of, I don't know, trying too hard, too artsy somehow. Oh, I don't like saying that because I think Make Noise is awesome. I'm just, you know, sometimes I think, oh, really? Anyway, so the Morphogeny is a bit like that. In fact, I remember I'd really like to do a proper review of it. I mean, I don't have one. I can't afford one. Because I saw a review of it that this guy did, and basically he was just sort of spouting the marketing speak, and it made absolutely no sense. And it didn't reveal anything about the modular tool, because that's one of the interesting things about the Make Noise description of stuff, is that they don't reveal anything. They talk about it, and it sounds good, but the words don't actually mean anything. So when they talk about reels, and they're talking about sort of time and space and interface and how things move and forward and backwards in time and stuff. It's samples, right? I mean, when they talk about a reel, it's not a reel. There's no reel of tape. There's no little windy thing of tape that they're stuck in. It's an SD card. It's digital. Therefore, it's a sample. So what's on those little cards is a sample, a bunch of samples that they choose to call a reel for no reason. Then I suppose the way that they forward and backwards through it, they try to make it a kind of a tape experience. So you have this tape moving forwards and backwards, which is interesting and nice. I like all of that. It had me boggled for the longest time because no one would talk about it in any kind of real sense. Everyone talked about reels, and they talked about the way that the Morphogeny was explained on the Make Noise website, which makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. But everyone adopted the same language. And that's just, I find that hilarious because it becomes impenetrable. What is it? What does it do? No one seems to know. Well, no, everybody knows because you have to be in the know to know what I know and know. And so you do really know what it does. But I just wish people would talk about it in some kind of real terms. I know, maybe one day I'll have one, and maybe one day I can, because it's a beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful module. The way that it sits there and the way that it glows. I mean, I love the way that Make Noise use light in a different way to everybody else, because they don't just use round lights. They use lights behind patterns and shapes and things, and that's really very cool. So yeah, so that's the Morphogenie then. What do I think about the Erica Synth module kit bundle? Which particular bundle do you mean? They do a lot of kits. A lot of their stuff they do as kits. They seem to be good. I haven't tried one. I'm probably not going to do an Erica Synth one unless there's something particular that really pops up, because I'm going to try to do something more eclectic during my series. But who knows, as the series continues, I might find myself doing an Erica Synth one. But I have a good load of Erica Synth stuff, so I kind of wanted to spread out a little bit more from that. Although I'm sure their stuff is excellent. Sure it is. Calibration on the Behringer Moog. I don't know. I don't have one. I haven't tried one, so I do not know that sort of thing. But it sounds like Plavsky might know something a bit more about it. Don't do that. Oh. Have you tried the time delay? That the Bastille Instruments one? No. Interesting though. An interesting desktop box. Yes, but no, I haven't. Half a pint of whiskey? No, it's not half a pint of whiskey. It was only a finger or two, but I had ice in it earlier because I like whiskey with ice. I mean, call me strange. And so it had melted. So it was twice as big as it was. So it's only really a shot or two. Which is I'm out of beer. So what can I say? It's trashy bourbon, I'm afraid. It's Lidl's own brand. Right, Lidl's own brand. 6 years though, it's been down in some hole somewhere. Kentucky bourbon from Lidl's. Lidl is a supermarket in a German supermarket, I believe. So that doesn't make any sense at all. But it's not bad. I mean, I prefer Bullet bourbon as a rule. It's much, much nicer. Or the other stuff with the wax that drips down the side. What's that called? Can't remember. Anyway, but the Lidl stuff is all right, and it's like a third of the price, and sometimes needs must. You know, it does it, and it comes in a Jack Daniel's shaped bottle with Jack Daniel's style writing on the front. Yeah, the Bullet stuff I can recommend though. That's really nice, and I have that when I can get away with it. Yeah, just talked about the radio music. Opinion on the 1010. Do you mean the Delta 1010 from M Audio, the old 1U audio interface, or do you mean the 1010 music bit box, perhaps? If that's what you're talking about, Chateau Lars. Not really my thing, the bitbox stuff, because it's a little bit menu, a little bit digital. I mean, I have nothing against anything digital, because I use the Surface touchscreen, all that sort of business. Fine, I'm deeply into digital stuff, but on Eurorack, I'm trying to stay more towards the analog side, more towards one knob, one function, that kind of thing. So the 1010 music stuff is it's cool. It looks very, very capable and interesting, and with the different firmwares, you can change it into different things. But I just don't think it's for me. I mean, I'm having sort of not trouble with the Hermod, but the Hermod is more menus than I want to be using. But I'm persevering with it because it's awesome. It has a lot of power, and I mean to get to the bottom of all of its power. and use it more often. I haven't really used it to a massive amount. I don't use it every time because it requires a bit more thought. And that's the thing about menus. They kind of require more thought than I want to give it. Whereas it's like when I was doing the test stream and I did the fiddle on this earlier, there wasn't any thought. I was just playing. I was flowing, man. I was in the flow and just making music. And I find that hard with a menu-driven module. But I understand the technology and the software behind it to be very good. So there's that. But it's just not really my thing. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be my thing to be your thing. It could be your thing. It could be your thing. Favorite new music lately? I struggle to listen to new music. In fact, the latest CD I bought, which was just the other day, was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And that's all 70s music. 70s/80s music. So that's really not helpful. What I like listening to YouTube videos of modular stuff. So they're no particular genre, no particular thing. I like listening to that. I like listening to back catalogues of music I've been listening to for 40 years. That's fine. New music I struggle to find. Yeah, maybe that's a thing about where I am in the stage of my life. Because my kids are starting to bring music into the house. That tends to be pop music. Some of that's okay. But mostly new music I listen to tends to be modular stuff on YouTube these days. I find I want to do something about that. I continuously want to do something about that. Okay, starting to lose it now, so I will try to bring things to a close soon by the 2-hour mark. I promise. So under 10 minutes then. Yeah, mannequins. If you've got make noise, making weirdness and talking strangeness, mannequins, they are a whole other place. A whole other place. I had to write an article about that thing, the W, was it, that they released? It took me hours. I didn't know where to start. Couldn't find a simple thing to say about it. Strange. Have you thought about putting everything in the modular, including sequencing, in a portable 6U portable rack? In a portable 6U rack? No, because this is portable as it is. I've gigged with this. I just pick it up and I put it in the back of the car. It's not safe. It would be much better to put it in some kind of suitcase, but I don't have one, so I haven't done. And I have no plans for one just yet. I think the DIY series I'm going to do will probably produce some kind of portable case like that. But at the moment, I'm just happy taking in the 3 rows as it is. And when I go to a synth meet, I take out a single row. Just pull out a single row and take that with me. That works for me. And sequencing, I haven't quite made up my mind what I use for sequencing yet. That's still something that I'm working through. The Hermod can be useful, well, can be brilliant, absolutely brilliant at sequencing. Variegate can be great, but not to use intentionally. It's best for accidental sequencing, I find. So I'm still looking at that. Or then you could use a DAW, but then that's a whole, that takes you back to the mouse. I don't want to go back to the mouse for that kind of thing. Yeah, I agree. All these people are lovely. I mean no criticism against any particular person when I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the stuff. And I think the Make Noise people are great. I think he's funny and engaging. It's just a whole other language, man. So I don't mean to criticize the people. Sometimes I poke fun at the approach and like to want to pull it apart and talk about it a bit. Noise engineering similarly, they really annoyed me, started getting up my nose at one point because of all these silly names for things that I can never pronounce. But as I say, when I started to understand their attitude and their humour, it made the whole thing completely different. And now I have a Bacillus iteratus alter, stupidly named module, which makes stupid noises, which are enormously entertaining. Okay, let me try to round this up if I can. Conflicted memories of Little Bourbon. Have I heard of Heinbach? Nope. No, I haven't. That's an easy one to do. New music recommendations are a going concern. Terror. I can also recommend. Oh, there we go. Maybe we can finish on that. I can recommend Modularism Volume 2. It's called Noises Off. And it is the CD, compilation CD, that I was invited to contribute a track to a couple of months ago. It is available now for pre-order on Law and Order Records. And I'm on it. I'm track 25, I think. It's a 2 CD set, or download, of course. And there's other people on there like Andrew Huang. There's Vile Electrodes on there, Future Sound Systems. Zoe Blade is on there. So I'm amongst good company, I feel. I haven't listened to that track that I did for it for a long time. I don't know whether it's any good. I mean, I don't know if you followed that or you came with me on that journey, but I ended up with 3 tracks which were possibles, I think. And in the end, I contributed the crazier one. I don't know whether that was a good idea. But, yeah, I've written better music since, I think. But that's just how things go. I just had to do it at the time, and it was a snapshot of the moment. The only slight annoying thing is it's not actually released until Christmas, until December, beginning of December. And so they've set up the pre-order thing, I think perhaps a little early, or either that or the release just seems a long way away. I guess that's record companies. I don't know. I don't really deal with record companies very often. I mostly self-release. And so you just make it happen when it happens. But that's exciting. So that'll be new music. Is it new music, or are people just churning out stuff they made before? I have no idea. I've not listened to any of the other tracks. So it'll be interesting to see what the rest of it sounds like. It'll be interesting to hear the reaction of people to what I did. If there is such a place for reaction. I mean, will 5 people buy it? Who knows? Who knows? But it's exciting. And that's getting released, and it's got a picture of me on it. Yay! So yeah, that's new music. Go and listen to that. And I do hope, absolutely, I'm aiming to release music with this, all this sort of stuff. I'm just, I mean, I don't know if you're interested in my own personal musical journey, but I'm just finishing a compilation of music I've done for Soul Circus, which is this sort of alternative, contemplative, worship-inspired, Eucharistic, spiritual thing I've been involved in for the last 5, 6, 7 years. And I've produced a lot of music for that that's used in a live space that's put together very quickly for a particular event. And I'm trying to collate all that together. And all of that was done and written before I got the modular. So it's kind of like, for me, it's finishing off and underlying all the music pre-modular that I did. And I really want to put that together and release it, because some of it's really good, you know. And I'm proud of it, of what we did with it. And it means something to me. And I really just need to finish mixing that down so I can release it. And then I feel I can start releasing newer stuff. So that's in the middle of what I want to do. And I hope to have that finished by the end of the summer, so I can draw a line under it and then move forward. That's my plan for my own music. And I'll let you know, of course, when that starts happening. Wanted to ask about Euclidean circles. For the DIY stuff, but no kit. Kills it, huh? What are Euclidean circles about again? It always seems to be about Vlad's 3 big rings of ultimate pulsing power that he's made. That module is just a fantastic thing. 3 rings of going at you. It's a rhythmic thing. Yeah, I remember. I don't know if there's a kit version of anything like that. I don't know. But it's an interesting thing, yes. Purple Hamid, how late are you? Very late. Very late. I mean, this is even an hour late and you're still late. So, there we go. All right, a final scan through. I'll try, yeah. The Gezeiten Ultima Ratio is a good Eurorack kit. Made by the guy who runs Modular Grid. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you for that. I'll try to remember it. Another message retracted. That's the second one. That's awesome. And a final message for the shirt. Thank you. The shirts always appreciate the love that they get from you people. So that'll do, I think. I will. There's only 1 minute now to 11 o'clock. I probably need to go to bed. Rest my voice. So thank you so much for joining me. That's been lovely. We've had like 70 people, which is fabulous. And you've come and gone, and you've talked, and you've chatted to me. And I hope you've found my responses either entertaining or interesting, or something passes the time. Good Lord, doesn't it? And that's great. Coming up then, just as a reminder, coming up next week, I am going to do that first DIY video, absolutely on power supplies. It's going to be awesome and quick and something. And I will work on the envelopes one, discovering envelopes, assuming it's just not baking hot. Also, I mean, to add to all of my problems, we have the builders in. We're building an extension on the back of the house. And so the other problem I had is I sat down to make a video and suddenly there's this sort of noises going on, which is great. So, I mean, it'll be an awesome thing, but at the moment it's not that helpful for my video making. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So, yeah, so that's coming up in the following week. More surface stuff. I'm going to do some more on voltage modular, which we haven't talked about, actually. Voltage modular on the surface and on a computer generally. I'm going to do a bit more on that because that was interesting. I need to get into it a bit deeper. I have something interesting cooking up with the surface dial. This fella. I assumed it was dead. I assumed it was never going to come off the shelf again, but it may do. So I'm looking at that this week as well. And if I discover anything, I'll let you know. But that could be potentially exciting. Oh, look at that. So you're not going to see that, but if I turn the knob here, right, it moves the web page up and down on my surface, just like that. See, that's beautiful. That's a great use of it. Otherwise, but I can do that with so many other things anyway. Oh, I don't know. Just trying to find a musical use, man. Moving that up and down. That ain't musical. I'm going to stick that. So yeah, lots more goodies to come. In the modular side of things, discovering envelopes, DIY stuff. I also want to talk about the AA1, the Strymon here. I'm just waiting for some guitar pedals to come in from Red Dog. They're going to lend me a couple of cool things to do a video on that with. So that's coming in. I've got a video to do on the Hermod because I haven't seen any good ones. I mean, Kaku did a decent one on the Hermod, but he seemed to gloss over a whole load of stuff. And it's better than that. There's a lot more in there, and it deserves a bit more time. So I want to give about an hour to it to really get into the detail of what the Hermod is about, because it's phenomenal in there. I mean, I confess I don't use it all the time, but the potential in there is enormous if I can give it time. That sort of thing. So I've got that to do, and then I'm starting to catch up. We need to get more stuff. Oh, I could do something on the Magneto. Still don't understand this fella, but I enjoy it more than I ever did the clouds. So Magneto, not got to the bottom of it. It makes funny noises and weirdness and is fun. And I still don't know what I'm doing because I haven't opened the manual properly. But far more enjoyable than Clouds ever was. Ever, I have to say. But that's just me. So we're going to have to stop at some point. So, so I should do that. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes turning this up and just having a quick fiddle in order to let you wander off. And then I'll cut the feed. And that'll be the lot. So cool. Cheers. I've already drunk that, so I'm not going to do that anymore. Yeah, that'll do. Thanks for watching so much. It's really appreciated. I get a kick out of this. I don't know what it is about the live stream in particular. It's weird because how do I fill 2 hours talking? How does that happen? I don't know how I do that. I'm not saying, oh, I'm so wonderful, I can fill 2 hours of talking. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, how is it possible to sit here and talk nonsense for 2 hours and have interaction? It's just an extraordinary thing. Because I sat down here at the start with no clue as to what I was going to talk about. So I'm really grateful for the interaction, for people suggesting things and me talking about it. That seems to work. We'll do it again next month, right? That'd be great. Am I away? I might be away because it will be the bank holiday probably. But we'll work something out, man. We'll work something out. End of August, early September, maybe. Maybe that will be what it's all about. So yeah, stay cool. Keep fiddling with stuff, and go and make some tunes. That's the thing. So I'll turn this up, and you can wander off while my back is turned. Still doing it. I can even zoom you in a little bit. Is that better? I don't know. long enough, I think. Thank you.